everyone.
Welcome back.
This wonderful Wednesday.
Quarantine. What are we on? Like 43 today? 43 days? Jeez.
But is this our third episode of quarantine?
It is.
Third episode quarantine.
And we just got the announcement here in Nevada that we will be sticking to quarantine through, it sounds like, the first couple weeks of May, even though I think governor's going to be kind of adjusting some of the some of the rules. But we're still here on lockdown.
Yeah, he hasn't they think mid-May, but I think we're gonna go roll through the whole month of May.
You think so?
Might as well. Keep it rolling.
Well, and it's crazy for all of you that are just watching. We are here in Las Vegas. I have taken a couple walks and jogs through the strip that's empty. They've discussed about, a lot of the hotels aren't taking reservations till June 1st. Although Wynn did announce that they were thinking of hoping to try and be open by Memorial Day weekend. But can you imagine, we've had no March Madness. There's been no draft. Can you imagine no Memorial Day weekend in Vegas?
I mean, yeah, I can, because we've lost so much already.
I'm not
psyching myself up for none of that.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. But my thing is, there's some domestic states that are slowly opening up too. That I guess that will allow travel to come to the city to kind of stimulate some of the economy here,
right?
Which would be good, I guess. But I want to see this first wave go out. Y'all go out, tell me how it is, and then I'll come out
and see how it goes.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if I can handle that. It's ridiculous.
I've come to the reality of this is what it is for right now. So I'm adjusting quite well. Which means I can be a good survivor in something really worse than
I ordered a shirt today. Shout out to Chelsea and her little boutique. And it says, I wonder if sports misses me too.
Oh, I know they do. They got to.
I can't. I just can't. I can't watch any more old replays of football games or basketball and there's nothing else to watch on ESPN right now.
I guess there's a Lakers game on, apparently, where we get our butts clipped. This is an old retro game. I'm not watching that. Why would I want to watch that? I turned on ESPN today.
You're like,
I'm calling it SPN. ESPN.
I can't. Woo, man. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in so far. Shout out to Jose.
Hey, Jose. What's up?
He's got a show later on this evening at 8. You guys should check it out. Shout out to Donnell's in here. Our guy Guru out in Tampa's here joining in as well.
Who got a hat? Thank you, Guru. And everyone else can put up a Girl Chat's hat, get a Girl Chat sports hat. I don't know why Mel, this is the third time of quarantine and she's forgotten again to type the cash apps up there, but
what do you mean? I don't gotta forget anything. It's right there. See? Bam.
Oh, now it's there. Okay. See, start to show that needs to just go right
here. I just don't keep it there all the time because when we got our guests coming on, we gotta make room.
We do. That's why we gotta start off early with the math. See, everybody write down our math.
Exactly.
And, you get a great Girl Chat Sports hat. Fits really niceable, adjustable. Totally an adjustable hat to wear. Like you can.
And shout out to everybody that's already bought them.
To cover yourself from the sun.
Natasha, Arlington, my girlfriend Tasha back home in Seattle. Remember Zoe that called in the one time, little girl? One of my girlfriend's daughters. She got one. So.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
And we want you guys to send pictures of you guys in the hats, so we can repost it. So anytime you receive your hat, please either tag us in your social media posts or just send us a pic and we'll post it for you. And you have, that going so we can shout you out and thank you again because we're very appreciative that you guys are supporting us at Girl Chat Sports. But yeah, hats are available. So.
And that's what it's about.
So
anyways, we got a guest.
Yes, we do.
A lot of stuff happened this weekend, but primarily the NFL draft took place. We've been trying to get a previous guest of ours on again. And since we are now all quarantined, hey, this is perfect time, right? So we're going to be joined by our next guest here, welcoming Gerome Sapp to the show. What's
going on with you guys?
How you doing?
We're good.
I'm making it. I guess we're all making it though, huh?
Yeah, but you got kids though. There's a difference. How's that going?
that does throw a wrench in it, but there's never a dull moment. So it's actually helping the situation. Actually,
Right.
I still get my fix of sports every day through my kids. So I'm relatively good, I guess.
Oh, that's great then. That works.
Well, no kids be out there doing it, man. If anyone wants to follow Jerome's Instagram, the kids are nonstop. Like, they are elite athletes at a very young age. How old are the kids again?
My oldest is 10 and my youngest is 6.
Wow. And the youngest one is one that broke the world record, right?
Yep. Last summer, my youngest broke a record that in track and field in the 100-yard dash.
Wow. That's pretty
so
impressive.
It was a record that stood, I think, for 20 years, and he basically shattered the record. So I was pretty proud about that. And actually, my oldest actually ran the fastest time in the state of Nevada too for the 100-meter dash. So
wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it was fun to see.
Over there. That's great.
Yeah,
that's
thank
really
you.
Great.
Thank you.
So I know with your career and everything, and I don't know if Mel wants to get into it right now. We talked about this upcoming draft last week, how we were all like looking forward to it because we don't know if we're gonna have a season or not. But you've been in that position getting drafted back in 2003, correct? And
Absolutely.
How were you? Because you didn't do the virtual version per se. You were there in a sense.
Actually, I did.
You did do a virtual because of the draft order that you're in?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So the crazy thing about this draft, it kind of hit closer to home to me because everyone had to experience that virtual kind of in the living room with close family and friends. One of the biggest things that a lot of first-round draft picks, the guys that get to go to the draft and walk across the stage, one of the biggest things they would always tell me was, man, that it was fun shaking the commissioner's hand, hugging them, but they wish they were able to share more of that experience with more family and friends. So obviously, allowing them to do it at home virtually, that really allowed them, I think, for the most part, to really experience that with the people that mattered and more of them. Extended family. Maybe not, all your. I mean, it doesn't have to be all your close friends, just friends in general. So. That really struck a chord with me because I fractured my wrist my last game of my senior season, actually against USC. So I went from
Notre Dame because that's where you went, Notre Dame.
Yep, I went University of Notre Dame, and so I went from a first, maybe second round pick to being drafted in the 6th round because the teams didn't think I would be ready to play for another 3 years or even play at all. So it was kind of like, man, it was, so the draft, basically how that draft went was how my experience was. In fact, I was actually on the basketball court when I got drafted. It was one of the things where, I prayed about it and I was about to graduate with a degree in finance. And it's one of the things I was like, man, I put everything I had into my college career, and wherever I get drafted, I get drafted. Everything that's meant to happen will happen. So I didn't really stress over it. I knew somebody would take a chance on me. So for me, I was like, shoot, let me go hoop. And the team that wants me is going to call me. But, you got to understand too, all through the draft, teams are calling you saying, hey, we're going to take you next. We're going to take you next. And for me, that went on from the 2nd round all the way to the 6th round. And it's not even that they lie to guys. Things just happen, right? I mean, if this guy gets taken, now your priority is here versus there. So, so it always, what happens, the pick or two before you really dictates to some teams what their needs will be. And that will change the order in which they want to take you sometimes. So, but all in all, I think the NFL was forced to find a new way of doing it that's more engaging. I mean, I had people texting me saying, man, it's so cool to see these guys in their living room and see all the decor and obviously Cliff Kingsbury, and his pad out in Arizona.
Man, the flexing was real, wasn't it?
Oh, it was real. I mean,
in their own
I'm not mad at them.
Some of them had nice mild flex, some of them had major flexes.
Absolutely. But I think a lot of that showed kind of more of a human aspect to the players, and also, you know, a lot of them come from humble beginnings. You know, I remember coming home to my mom's couch, and you know, I mean, thinking, man, like someday, you know, we're gonna have new furniture in here. And during this draft, you got to get a little glimpse of what a player's home life is like. You know, which is why a lot of guys choose to go pro early. You know, a lot of times it's not about them; it's about their family. So
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was one thing I thought was interesting is you're not only seeing, you know, we get to see these kids in their homes, because that's how a lot of them, there are like the first rounders that end up being there live if there was a regular draft. But for the rest of them, we do usually see them inside, but it was interesting to see the coaches and like having their kids around. Like these kids have probably never seen their dad probably in the month of April alone, let alone throughout the season. And now they get to hang out with their dads, watch the game, whether they're young or old. I mean, we saw Titans kid, you know, they're in their early 20s messing around over there. And then you got Bill Belichick and his dog. Like, you got to see he chilling in the chair, ready to do some picks with him. So really interesting to see just kind of how this took a turn. But one thing I wanted to ask was because, you know, you were in 2003, and it was kind of like a virtual draft, but there was no real virtual, you know, there was no, you know, social, there was no Twitter and major Facebook and social media. So we don't get to kind of share and partake in how it really felt, I think, now versus just a video in the house. Now we're all talking about it and tagging people about it. I mean, I had posts that had like, you know, random comments on it. So how do you think that's made a difference for him this time around?
Yeah, I think it made it, you know, like I said, it forced them to stumble upon something that it kind of touched a personal chord with fans. You know, I mean, and anytime you can touch a personal chord with fans, that's something powerful. So ability to invite them into your home and invite them into your personal life to a degree is special. And I think they're going to capitalize off this moving forward. And, you know, it's interesting. You talk about the kids. You know, for me watching it, it struck a different chord because it reminded me of training camp and seeing all the coaches' kids coming around and, you know, having fun, coming in and out of the drills, helping out. So, and I remember the smiles that the kids had, how much fun they had. To your point, they're not going to see their dads again for any significant amount of time until the end of the season. So that was kind of the last hurrah for a lot of the kids and the wives and the significant others of the coaches. So seeing them interact with their fathers, that it was special to me being a father too. And I remember how that was in training camp, you know, high-fiving the kids and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, I think the NFL they were forced to stumble upon something powerful. And I think it really, like I just mentioned, struck a chord with the fans on multiple personal levels. And anytime you can do that, I think you're on to something good.
That's great. Yeah. So we'll get into a little bit of the actual draftees from Friday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Of course, I think nobody, you know, didn't know that Joe Burrow was going to get drafted first by the Bengals. So we'll take care of that. We all got that one underway. What do you think about, we got a comment from one of our listeners right now about the Dolphins taking Tua?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of people want to put a big question mark on him or asterisk in terms of his health, but everyone is an asterisk marks in terms of health going into the NFL. You know, any injury you've ever had, that injury is going to be stressed to the fullest going into the NFL. Obviously, Tua just had an injury, and he seemed to be injury prone. But he's such a special talent. Me personally, I like him better than Burrows, actually. Okay. Now this is not taking anything away from Burrows. I think he had a historic year this year. I mean, I think statistically the best year a quarterback's ever had in college football.
He also had a great team too.
Yeah, exactly. But if you ask me, from being a player who played both the college game and the NFL game, Tua has that special thing that you scratch your head about and be like, dang, we game planned for him and everything went well. You covered him. The line rushed well. How did he get that ball off? How did he get out of that sack? How did he complete that ball? That's what Tua has. And in the NFL, you got to have something special. You can't just be a drop back guy. Like, guys are too fast, guys are too smart. I mean, so you got to have something special. And all the great ones have it, whether it's their mind, where they can outthink you, like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, Drew Brees, or you're Russell Wilson type, which I kind of see too as being.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question, I thought whatever team got him, that was the steal of the draft. You know, I mean, him sliding to past 1, 2, or 3. So I actually thought San Diego was going to trade up for him and get him, but they didn't. So
excuse me.
anyway, so that's what I thought of Tua.
Well, that's good, because the follow-up question for that was, as a defender, what do you see as far as if you were to study on Tua? What do you see? What jumps at you as a defender? But I think you already pointed that out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Like, so here's a bit of information. It's almost impossible for a defensive back to cover an NFL wide receiver for more than 3 or 4 seconds. The guys are too good. They know where they're going. You're running backwards just as fast as they're running forward. So when it starts to get 3 or 4 seconds, which means the quarterback is allowing the play to extend. That's why Ben Roethlisberger is so dynamic. He can extend the play. Russell Wilson, all these mobile quarterbacks who can extend the play, they make it almost impossible for the defense, specifically the defensive backs, not to mention the linebackers who are trying to sometimes cover tight ends who are better athletes than them. It just makes it so much harder. So that's one. They extend the play to a point it's almost impossible to cover the wide receiver. The second thing is ability to look one way and go back the other way. I mean, he was doing that as a true freshman. Guys that can look off a safety, blindly look off a safety, they go back the other way and get the ball there. I mean, guys, a lot of rookies in the NFL don't come in learning. I mean, it takes them 2 or 3 years to learn how to do that. He already knows how to do that. So, with him, you just study him. You try to confuse him like we do most rookie quarterbacks and quarterbacks. And when I say confuse, we do that in various ways. So the safety's high coverage, then we rotate back, then we rotate it back. We may play mixed coverages where it'd be cover 1 on this side of the field, zone on this side. Then with the motion, we flop it around. I mean, all kind of stuff that these rookie quarterbacks have never seen. So yeah, I mean, just basically keep them thinking. The more a player is thinking and not reacting, the more he's not in his natural element. I mean, that goes for all players too, right, but especially quarterbacks. If you make them have to, if you make them have to come off their first target and go to their second target, as we call it, progression, and then maybe even the third progression, a lot of guys can't do that, So that's the key, to make them hold the ball and either take a sack or have to make a read down the field, a different read down the field.
Mm-hmm. That was great assessment. Thank you. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any surprises for you on this draft that you saw, anything that you're looking forward to. I know your Ravens had 5 picks and they all went with defensive men. So I don't know if that's something specific. I think it hadn't ever happened for them before. It hasn't happened in the draft where teams used all their picks for one side. But is there anything that you saw throughout the draft maybe caught your eye, or that you're looking forward to seeing a certain person in a position or with the team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before all that, real quick, Mel, we've got a Vegas Raiders team. So I would also further piggyback off of what Jerome's about to answer with that one, what he feels about the picks that we got, because there was a lot of controversy with our wide receiver pick, and this is the first class of an official Las Vegas Raiders team. Yeah. So after you answer Mel's, I have a quick question about that. As far as what do you think as far as our picks went for Harry Ruggs the third over Jerry Jeudy, and how that came about? If you answer after you answer Mel's, if you remember Mel's, I'm sorry.
I was
like, let me ask.
We're going to ask one question at one time.
I'll remember. At least
the answer. No, but in case there was a pause.
Well, I guess the biggest thing is, just to frame this question, every team, every GM, all the scouts, they know what they need, and they know what they don't need. So there's a lot of things that we don't know going into it that they know, obviously. I mean, they may be letting a veteran go in 2 weeks. They may be arranging a trade for a veteran. So when they go into the draft, it's not by accident. It's very purposeful. So Mel, to answer your question, the biggest surprise, I think, for me was the kid Jordan out of Utah State going to Green Bay.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Shocked a lot of people.
Yeah, that shocked everyone.
But it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a shocker because of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's the business. Like, Aaron Rodgers is, he's declining. Everyone declines. And I'm not saying he's still not a dominant player, but he's on the decline. I mean, it happened to Brett Favre. You don't think it's going to happen to you? They're going to draft someone to replace you. That is the business of the game. Like, so it wasn't surprising that they drafted a quarterback that high. I just didn't think he was the guy they should have drafted. Like, I thought the kid, I thought there was a few other quarterbacks that are a little bit more polished. Obviously, they're going to, and obviously they're going to use Aaron Rodgers to kind of sharpen or polish the kid Jordan up, and I hope he does, because I'm rooting for him and all these guys. But when I looked at him in college, just a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to say that I studied him like a book, but he seemed to make a lot of. He tried to make a lot of plays his athletic ability wouldn't allow him to. So it wasn't a fact that he's made it before and he can make it again. It was almost like he wasn't able to make the play, but he kept trying to do it. Throw balls across his shoulder, across the field. So that kind of worried me a little bit. So that was a shocker to me for that reason, not because they drafted a quarterback, just him. I guess, other than that, I mean, like I said, if you went into it knowing that every team has a need and they're going to supply that need in the draft, it's kind of like, well, okay, well, you must know something I don't know. Like the Patriots maybe didn't take a quarterback, didn't draft a quarterback, even though they signed 2 rookie free agent quarterbacks. That makes sense to me. That tells me that the quarterbacks they have now, they have a high level of confidence that one of them is going to be their quarterback. And, and I think it's important too, from a psychological standpoint, and this goes kind of 2 ways, that if you tell someone you believe in them, you got to show them too. So if they went out and drafted someone, that would kind of rock the mind of the guy that is probably, they already know who their quarterback probably is right now.
And plus they were shadowing behind Tom Brady. So if you're not shadowing behind Tom Brady, what good are you used to being on that secondary team of being a backup quarterback? So it makes sense that they didn't do that. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely. Because I always say the most valuable player on the team is the backup quarterback sometimes. I mean, he is one play away from having to save your season, especially for New England too. And to your point, I mean, if you're hanging around in New England, there's a reason why you're hanging around there as a quarterback,
Right.
So, it's not a lucky thing or I know somebody. No, you have a talent that fits that system. And if needs be, you're going to come in and play and probably play well. If you look at quarterbacks that were backups in New England or even third string guys, they have a very good fundamental understanding of how to play the position. And a lot of quarterbacks don't have that. If you fundamentally know how to play the position from your read, your check down, your audibles, that's 75% of the position. And then you can use your physical traits, but most people can't do it here. They rely on their physical traits.
Right.
So to answer your question about the Raiders, the Raiders, that's another thing.
I don't think Henry Ruggs was a bad pick, though. I got beef in my household about it, but I didn't think it was a bad pick. I graded it as a great pick. He was
I looked him in a bathrobe. I think that just did it for me.
Well, he's a Raider. That's perfect.
Well, it's like he's not in a bathrobe on the strip all day. Like, I mean,
but we see it, and it works. That works in the mindset of, and you got to think about it. He comes from Alabama. We used to have a wide receiver that was awesome from Alabama by the name of
what was his name? He's at the Cowboys. Cooper.
Yep,
Amari Cooper.
So you're seeing the same type of thing. Is he going to be a DHB? I don't think so, but they're not losing on picking somebody like him over a Jerry Jeudy, who, by the way, is with the Broncos, but the Broncos also reached out to Jeudy as well and felt that they needed him more. And I feel like you said, within the organizations, we only see what's on the outside. We don't see what's going on the inside. So they knew what they were doing by picking Henry Ruggs.
Absolutely. And here's an example of why one receiver, Ruggs the third, may have been more interesting than the other one. Yeah. In the Raiders offense, they need big, strong, powerful guys that are going to block for the running back too. Now, I haven't seen film on all the receivers, but I know some receivers don't like blocking. You know,
yeah, you got Hunter Renfrow, you got Terrell Williams, and you got Darren Waller. None of those guys are really super big guys. They're more svelte. And so if you can get another guy that's going to be, I see where you're going with this. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I mean, you want a guy that's going to complete the overall package of your offense. You know, you can get anyone, relatively speaking, to go down and run a route, but you got to have a guy who there may have been an element of that offense in Alabama's offense, so he's not coming in brand new to check downs and audibles and when they line up in this formation defensively and shift, you already know kind of how we're going to handle it offensively. Right. So you're already coming in ahead of the game. And not to mention you're a physical guy that's going to block off the edges and downfield. I mean, sometimes that type of stuff, you get a guy who's able to do that. That's a game breaker right there. I remember receivers who were willing to block allowed running backs to break big plays downfield because they were blocking and getting in the way downfield versus guys who they didn't want no part of it, you know.
And he's with Josh Jacobs, another Alabama alum that they played.
Absolutely.
With. So that's going to be a great dynamic. I don't know why people was dissing that.
But also too, I think Mariota coming to the Raiders is going to be interesting.
I wasn't into that. I wasn't really a fan of that, but it's going to be an interesting thing to see that. But what is your take on that? What do you think of him coming as that second string?
You know, I'm a fan of his, so I'm gonna put that aside, and I'm just gonna address it from a football playing aspect. You know, Mariota, I mean, he's been unlucky. You know, I mean, but if you say is he a good football player and can he learn to be more dynamic? I think he has more it factor than Carr. Put it like that.
Really?
We would have a harder time game planning against Mariota than we would Carr because Mariota can extend the play more. And if he takes off and runs, you better get on your horse to go get him, you know. There's no threat of that. And, you know, David Carr, he's a great guy, comes from a great family. You know, we used to beat up on his brother all the time when I was with the Colts.
Yeah.
But I think they're realizing he's kind of reaching his glass ceiling in terms of what all we can get out of him type thing.
Well, I think the injury in 2016 didn't help either.
You're right.
Gets him gun shy when he gets to the line. His biggest thing is him throwing deep in pass plays. If he can go deep with the ball, Carr's all time. And that's part of the reason of getting a Henry Ruggs the third to come in there too, because he can run fast and go deep and Carr can go deep. Yep. So I don't think it's that Carr's lapse is gone. It's just that injury kind of really messed him up because you got to remember back in that time, he was going to be MVP in 2016 when we were in the playoffs. I know that was 4 years ago, but it still seems recent to me because I'm a Raider fan. But I digress. But you made a great point with Mariota because he is a running quarterback, and that is truly now a new aesthetic for the game.
Yeah. So I just feel for the Raiders to take a guy like Mariota, it tells me that the starting job is not necessarily all Carr's for now. He's going to start with.
Well, he has a year with us. So.
But I feel like it's going to be a short leash kind of. You know, because there's other things with Carr, you know, and not to bash Carr, but I know for a fact there's audibles he missed. There's checks he missed when there should be a run versus pass. And you got to make those at this level, especially this long in the game and playing quarterback, you know? So, you know, I guess I'm rooting for him because I like Carr. But my sense is telling me Mariota will be the Las Vegas Raider quarterback in a year or two. Yeah.
Well, you know, it also sometimes it takes somebody being at your heels for you to push forward and to really
absolutely.
excel. And you know, David
Absolutely.
really hasn't had that person biting at his heels to take his spot. Now he kind of has.
Absolutely.
We'll see if that pressure he's got is going to pursue, you know, help him project and do well for this next season.
That's a great point.
Absolutely.
His backups were no threat to him whatsoever. We saw
that's
that.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's
and
a great point.
I know Mariota is going to bring, you know, discipline to practice and how he practiced, and to your point, that's going to push Carr, and hopefully it's going to push him in the right direction too.
Well, and Mariota's not happy with how he's ended his time with the Titans. I know, you know, through injury and battles and whatever, like I'm sure he has something to prove too, and he wants to go out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
And also too, I mean, this is a perfect market for Mariota. I mean, Vegas is what they call the ninth island for Polynesians.
Mm-hmm.
So this, you know, I mean, this he's going to have so much support from family and extended family and just fans here. I mean, it's you know, and that goes a long way to motivate a guy to step it up a little bit. So, I mean, I think all in all, it's good for the Raiders because it's creating competition, and competition I mean, the best person will eventually rise when proper competition is there. So, you know, may the best man win, basically.
And you coming from a safety position background, what is your take as far as Jonathan Abrams goes? Because this will be the start of his season really officially because he got hurt very early on last season. What do you think he needs to do to adjust to the new draft class that we have, or the new line that we're getting, or Mariota, or what Carr may be for this season? What could you give as far as tips to him?
You know, the biggest thing is just studying film, you know, and learning to control the things that you can control, which starts with your mind and your body. You know, coming into camp in the best shape possible. You know, a lot of guys come into camp, you know, kind of in shape. So it takes them a while in camp to get in great shape. And that's, you know, while you're getting in great shape, you're not really learning as much as you should. So it's kind of like a boxer coming into training camp already at weight. So he doesn't have to worry about making weight in camp. He just worries about the skill aspect of it. So the same thing for football players. Coming into camp in the best shape possible and really diving into the playbook and the nuances of the playbook, and basically just making sure that you try to be the smartest person on the field. And, you know, that when I say that, that means you not only know what you're supposed to do, but you know what everybody's supposed to do on your side of the ball. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, a lot of guys, especially coming off injuries, they kind of, you know, it's a cycle that they go through. You know, I mean, there's a depression part because you can't be out there with your guys and you're missing it, and you feel like you're letting them down, and you don't feel a part of the team anymore. And the closer you get to it, some guys don't want to necessarily reassert themselves as a leader because they haven't been there. So it's really just starting back at square one and being like, you know, who am I and who do I want to be to this team, and come out the gate that, you know. But that starts with the playbook, you know, and learning to watch film. You know, a lot of guys, including me, I didn't know how to properly watch film coming out of college, you know. I mean, and I was so fortunate that I was drafted to Baltimore. There was, you know, Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and all these other guys who film watching was a profession for them, you know. I mean, picking out the smallest details of your opponent and really studying it. So it allowed you not only to have statistics behind your actions, but also allowed you to be an athlete. And guys who know kind of what's coming and are athletic, I mean, those are guys that have the most success. So that's the biggest thing. And you know, I hope he learns to watch film. So, but like I said, controlling what he can control, which is his body and his mind, and really reasserting himself as a leader. And you know, the chips will fall where they may after that.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see that because he started out really early and just didn't, according to injury. And then if you watch the Hard Knocks, Gruden kind of warned him of how he needs to hit and don't hit with this, like, you know, and there you go.
But that's tough though, man. How a guy hits is how he hits, you know. I mean, and for some guys that's a negative, and for some guys that's a positive. But you know, I mean, I'm trusting that this whole time he's been off, he's been corrected what he needed to correct.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't dispute it. Yeah. Well, thank you. I had to talk on my Raiders. You know, that's the Vegas local stuff right now.
I'm just sitting here like,
Well, I mean, you can talk about your Seahawks too. I mean, they drafted a couple.
My Seahawks have 20 offensive linemen and 14 tight ends. I mean, that's really what's happening right now.
Hey, Mel, I'm telling you. So if you decide to build your team from the ground up, like the Seahawks are doing, and I think the Raiders got in because part of Carr's trouble was no one was blocking for him, you know?
Right.
And you can be the best quarterback in the world, but if you don't have time to step back and make your reads,
he did.
I mean, it doesn't matter. So
and he's not a scrambler like Russell Wilson. He's not a scrambler.
Exactly.
He can't get out of those situations.
Exactly.
Well, if we have blockers, we could also hopefully have some running backs that don't get injured because we were on our fourth string at the end of the season. We did pick up this year in the draft as well. I think it was from Miami. But I'm excited that we have a lot of tight ends. I'm really excited for the Stanford kid because target. Like even we could end up running with like 2 tight ends on the field half the time. I mean, half the season last year, we had an offensive lineman who was I don't know what the terminology is for when you basically are open to catch the ball. Like you're allowed to
tackle over.
So that happened like numerous times throughout our games last year because they were, but to be able to have anybody to catch the ball, to be a big target outside of DK Metcalf this year is going to be amazing, not only for Russell, but to have tight ends that can block. I mean, we've still had, a couple, and Disley got injured, but Jadeveon Clowney, it sounds like most likely we'll be staying with Seattle. I guess Ford had sold his number to him last year or something, and this year they reported he asked for his number back.
No.
So it sounds like that's a sign of things of not sticking around. But we did get we got a few guys linebackers in the draft, and I know there was our first round pick, Texas Tech kid, I forgot his name already, but he had been told by others of possibly having some like Bobby Wagnerisms in him. I don't know if you're familiar with the kid. I wrote his name down somewhere. Jordan Brooks.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
I think the Seahawks had a great draft. I think the Raiders had a good draft too.
I think so too.
I think the Seahawks did it right. They got a running back, and I'm sure they're gonna sign a few other running backs. But last year was dumb luck. I've been on a team where we've had all of our running backs get hurt, and it's no fun.
It's tough.
I don't anticipate that happening again, but they went out and got a strong running back. I saw highlights of this kid, and he's awesome. But more importantly, the problem with the Seahawks also was offensive linemen getting hurt late in the season. Then Russell Wilson didn't have time to do what he needed to do. So the fact that they got offensive linemen and tight ends, and I've seen this kid from Stanford up in person. I went to the Notre Dame Stanford game, and he was in a bar after the game. I mean, this kid is a giant, but he's built like just a big wide receiver, but he's big though, he's probably all of 6'8" too, so
right.
I think that was one of the best picks of the draft, especially if you can have dual tight ends like the Colts used to do, and obviously the Patriots when they had Gronk and Hernandez. I mean that showed results. Yeah. I mean, that creates so many mismatches for the defense. You have 2 guys that big that can run, and not only run, but run routes like that. I mean, it's so hard when they body you up and you can't do them. So I think the team had a plan, and it seems like they stuck to that plan to really pad the line and pad the offense and draft where they needed to on defense to fill those gaps. In terms of Clowney, Clowney had his moments. But I've never been a real big fan of Clowney simply because he takes too many plays off. And that makes it easy for the offense. And to compare him to someone, take J.J. Watt. Obviously, J.J. Watt is incredible, right? He never takes a play off. That's what makes him dynamic. But when you have a big guy, I mean, Clowney's a big guy, but the offensive linemen are bigger than him too. So it doesn't matter that he's that big. What matters is you can keep your motor going play after play after play. Like And because, Clowney doesn't have any exceptional moves. It's not like he's Freeney that has a spin move, a bull rush, inside spin. So, he's not exceptionally fast either. So it's kind of telling that no one was willing to give him the money he was asking for in free agency.
Right.
And now he's having to come back to the team. Like that should make you kind of scratch your head about him a little bit.
He had some great plays last season, but he didn't have like a dynamic season. Like it wasn't like you looked at the season he had and was like, wow, he really did. Like he had some really important plays that helped on like third down.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, so I feel like he got a fair offer from Seattle originally, and he should have taken that. Now that they've drafted
do you remember what that was? Do you remember how much they offered him at first?
17. I think he wanted 20. I think they offered like 17 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I mean, he's a good kid. He just has to. To your point.
Still, it's just.
I mean, he's put it like this. He's good. He's a good third down person. Coming the game on third down, he can be very disruptive. But I don't see him as an every down defensive end or drop backer, because then it becomes a liability if he's going to take second and third down off. That's when you really need him, type thing. So, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. But Ron, let me ask you something. Circling back to the quarterback thing, what do you think of Jameis Winston being now labeled as a secondary quarterback with his only one season offer, $1.1 million, I believe it is?
I think the Saints.
Do you think that he should be back up?
Absolutely. I think this is probably the best thing that could happen for his career, because he's obviously talented. There's no question about that. But like I said earlier, there's a lot of people who can throw a football a country mile walking around on the streets right now. Playing quarterback is not about how hard you can throw, how far you can throw. It's about how well you can outthink the defense and do it consistently. And the fact that he consistently throws interceptions from a defensive player who used to watch film with Peyton Manning lets me know he doesn't know what he's looking at. And if you don't know if you're looking at, it's a 50-50 gamble when you throw the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't throw 30 interceptions in a season. Like that means you're not reading the defenses.
Right.
Now, obviously, maybe all those may not have been his fault, but most of them probably were. And that just means you're not going through your progression. You're not reading the shifts in the defense. You're not reading coverages, and to a degree, you're not getting the ball where it needs to be. So. For me, being that I'm a fan of all these guys, I want them all to succeed. Having a chance to play behind a future Hall of Famer in Drew Brees and learn from him, teach him how to watch film, teach him how to be a quarterback.
Yeah. From
this part right here, I think it's the best thing that can happen to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Be better than Bridgewater, you think? After spending time with Drew?
No, Bridgewater had a better touch on the ball.
Yeah.
And he was smart. And when I say smart, that doesn't mean that Jameis Winston is dumb.
No.
It just means it takes a certain type of mind to be successful at quarterback on that level.
That part.
Because there's grown men playing defense, and their whole job is to trick you.
Right.
So it's hard. Guys are flying around, guys are here, now they're there. So it takes let's put it like this. Takes a certain type of discipline to learn how to properly play that position. And if you've never been forced or pressured, meaning you never thought your job was endangered, I guess Fitzpatrick came in. But it was always kind of understood that Jameis Winston was going to come back and be the starter. So this is forcing him to have to take a step back. So I like the move.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do.
Where's Cam going to go?
Huh?
Where's Cam going?
That's
the $1 million question.
That's $1 million question. But the second $1 million question is Cam healthy?
Yeah. Well, we're seeing his IG.
He's working out, but is he healthy?
Physically okay.
Listen, working out, and I hope he's healthy. But working out, on IG doesn't mean you're healthy. Doesn't mean you can take a hit. You know what I'm saying? Like that just means you're workout ready. But it's a difference between being football ready and being in football shape. Like, so, You know, I mean, I've had shoulder surgery where, you know, I could do things, you know, with my shoulders, but could I hit somebody? No. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, so, you know, I take that with a grain of salt. You know, like I said, I hope he's healthy because I think whoever signs him kind of got a diamond in the rough, kind of, you know, if he can play under a coach that can teach him too, because it's another thing. You know, Cam had all the ability in the world, you know, but I don't think Cam really learned how to play the position though. Like,
Right.
and here's an example of that. You know, it never bothered me that he celebrated, whatever, celebrate. But every time he got a first down, he was, you know, doing all this and celebrating. You know, from a defensive standpoint and playing with quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, that's valuable time for you to get back to the huddle, get the play, and think about how you're going to audible out of it. And you're spending time celebrating, like I'm not mad at you for celebrating, but you're not playing. You're taking away time that you need as a quarterback now, getting ready for the next play type thing.
Right.
Like, and I think that's a microcosm of Cam Newton in general. Like, I mean, there's him on the sideline, and I don't know everything they talked about on the sideline, but where you see other quarterbacks going over the last series with on the you know, the little iPad thing with their coordinators, I don't see him doing that a lot. You know, so I think he needs to be taught how to properly play the quarterback position up here. And if he can stay healthy, he has all the ability in the world. I think he will be a steal of the free agency.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's just a matter of seeing what team.
one of the questions from the viewers is at the Buccaneers. So what's your take now on this? Possibly a super team. You've got Brady going, Gronk's going. He's got Evans, Howard, Godwin. I mean, he's got all. Brady hasn't had these kind of targets in I don't know how long. So, you know, do you feel that the Bucs are going to be one of the great teams? Do you feel like they're being lowballed as far as where they may be, and standing wise, or what do you expect to happen with this Bucs?
No, that's a good question. And to be honest with you, it's kind of wait and see for me. You know, I mean, look at the Cowboys. They had the best team on paper, but did they win many games? You know, I mean,
and this ain't the same Tom Brady we're talking about. Let's be real.
Yeah. So also too, to that point, you know, part of what made Tom Brady so amazing was all his receivers knew the system that he was in, and they were all comfortable with one another. You know, if you know the system, I remember Peyton Manning telling me, knowing the system is 90% of the battle. You can plug anyone in because there's a prerequisite at some point that you have some ability. So if you know the system, that's 90% of it, you know. So he's going to a situation now where guys have to learn the system and they all have to be on the same page, because there's times when receivers and quarterbacks make audibles mid-route, like based on when he says hut, based on which direction the defensive back steps, inside or outside, both quarterback and receiver knows, okay, we're changing it to this route now. And those little nuances, that's what makes championship teams, you know?
Yeah.
So if you don't have, you can have the best players in the world, but if you're not on the same page in terms of those nuances, it doesn't necessarily matter, obviously, you know? If you would have asked me, I think they're going to be very good. Partly because their coach he's amazing. He's awesome. He's awesome with players. He's going to demand the system if you get on that field with Tom Brady. You know, it's not going to be, well, I kind of will, well, you're not playing then. I don't care who you are, you know? So I think because of that, and because of the way he's going to nurture is a bad word, but help Tom Brady, he's not going to beat him down, basically, you know, like he's a veteran coach. He's a player's coach. So he's going to allow Tom Brady to mesh into the routine like he needs to. And he's not going to overload him with different things. But I think it's really going to come down to how soon that offense learns the system and they all know each other. You know, I mean, I remember Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harris would just look at each other and they knew, okay, this is what we're doing based on what we both see. You know, we see it together. I just look at you. We know what's going on. I mean, that
Right.
kind of detail is. I mean, man, like you can't pay for that. That's just time playing together and knowing somebody. So I bet you though. I mean, Tom Brady's still such a competitor, which I love about him. And Gronkowski's a competitor. I mean, he got Gronk. Gronk knows it. And they're going to have two dynamic tight ends. So as well as these other receivers too. So I think they're going to be good. But let's wait and see.
Yeah, let's wait and see on that. I'm not giving the Bucks no. Being a Raiders fan, we don't like the Bucks. Yeah, we don't like them. So it's whatever. But what you're saying is absolutely right. I mean, it's a totally new system for even Tom Brady to get his head wrapped around with the coach. But he can always he dissects plays, and he's the type of person too. You throw any kind of new situation at Tom, he's gonna grasp it like no other.
Yep.
I just look more so at the performance level of himself. We see what it looks like when he doesn't have a line.
Yep. Man. Well, Tom Brady's his game is, which is why he's been able to play so long.
Right.
His game is not to scramble or run. His game is to sit back and pick you apart. Like he could do that till he's 50 years old. Like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
as long as his line protects him, he doesn't.
As long as his line protects him,
don't give him any ideas.
Yeah, he said, "I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off." So,
hey, real quick, before we switch gears and move on to Last Dance, I did want to kind of see what your thoughts are on what may happen with this season coming up. I mean, not only just for NFL, but for college football, how you think this coronavirus, COVID, quarantine, pandemic is going to affect not only sports, but the upcoming seasons that haven't been discontinued or stopped because of it already.
So, that's a good question. I think it will have an impact. One thing I didn't mention about the draft, I think, and not to go back, but this kind of is the same. It hurt a lot of guys that weren't able to spend time with coaches that learn their personalities or ask them questions that the media or the police report may have had one thing, but let me just talk to you about it. They didn't have that chance. So it hurt, this virtual thing, though it was great and all, it hurt a lot of guys because their personalities that typically comes out in meetings with coaches, it wasn't able to. So fast forward to the question you just asked me, the ability to spend time with the athletes leading up to the season and guys meshing well together. I mean, part of that's half the battle or half the value of training camp and spending time in these mini camps is guys kind of getting back into the groove of being a team again. One of my good buddies that I played with, he's now the wide receiver coach for the Eagles.
Okay.
And, he was just saying, man, like it's tough not being able to be around the guys. And he said, we do these virtual calls, but nobody really wants to be. Yeah, it's not the same. Nobody really wants to be there. They, if we're going to talk, let's do it in person. Otherwise, I'll see you, So I think it's going to have an effect. The degree of the effect, I don't know. Everyone's talking about playing games with no fans. I mean, when you really sit and think about it, it's not necessarily a bad idea for a few reasons. One, when we used to scrimmage teams in preseason, I'm not talking about a preseason game. I'm talking about when during the middle of the week, we drive down to Washington to scrimmage the Redskins when I was with the Ravens, and it was a closed practice. We'd have it in their stadium. There was no fans, and we still banged like it was Monday Night Football, So what's the difference? The guys are going to compete regardless. If you don't have fans, I mean, the cameras will just catch the competition on the field, and the guys are going to compete like there are fans in the stands, because that's just what they're going to do. You line me up in front of someone, I'm going to compete. That's what you do. Like, so the fact that there's no fans, I mean, there's a whole world watching you on camera. That's even more of an incentive type thing. So if you can create a way where you can test the players and test all the, I guess, essential people that need to be a part of the games, I think you can do it. I mean, now they're coming out with rapid tests. So I guess the moral question would be: is it is it right to waste tests on athletes when there's everyday people who need it and can't get it? So, that's a moral question.
I about to say that comes into a moral quandary, honey.
Yeah, but from a business standpoint, if NCAA or the NFL said, okay, for every athlete we test every week, we'll donate 500 tests basically to the the area's hospital, then it becomes not necessarily a big of a moral issue, and it becomes a business. Well,
that could be for every test they do to an athlete. It's also a job that's required at the stadium that needs to be. Someone else can be hired because they have to work at the stadium to make sure their operations are working as well as smoothly too during this.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a million. If they're willing to think outside the box, and people are willing to accept there's going to be a new norm for a while, but let's make the most of it. I think there's a million ways to do it. I mean, especially basketball. I mean, we've seen guys playing in the gym in the off season with no fans, but they're going hard as hell at each other, So, I mean, you can even sell virtual tickets to these games. I mean, they have the VR technology where you can buy virtual seats. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So there's a million ways to do it. If you're willing to not think about what it used to be and think about what it could be for the here and now. So, I mean, so to answer your question, I think it will affect it, but I think it's going to force them once again to think outside the box and create something that's actually pretty cool if people are willing to go with it.
I just want sports back, period. Like, let me just watch it. I don't care if it's in person, on the sideline, if it's, let me be on my couch. I don't care if I'm at a bar. I just want to watch it. I want to watch live stuff, like current stuff.
I'm with you. I got a call from my son's club baseball owner, and he was like, hey, this was yesterday. He was like, hey, we got a call that we may be able to open back up mid-May. And I was just like, yes, like any kind of sports. I don't care what it is, So I'm right there with you.
Get in the car. We're getting out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So,
oh man. Okay. Well, before we let you go, obviously we've been watching The Last Dance. You've been watching it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So, I mean, we had episode 3 and 4 this past weekend. It was kind of like the Dennis, Phil, bad boy, I guess would be a good sum for the weekend, Sunday's event. So I found it funny myself how, we're all about the same age group-ish. So for those that, we, especially me, I'm a Jordan fan. Like, I grew up, hey
little guy.
Like they didn't get the opportunity
boys
around watching Michael Jordan like when he was live and playing. Like, yeah, you can watch some old tapes, you can watch some YouTube videos of him, but what is it that you found kind of interesting? I don't know if your boys watched with you, but that they maybe have been surprised about, or that you've seen through like social media, people being surprised about just the Jordan aspect, or just the Bulls team during those years, or even like the bad boys.
I gotta get up on this. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing, it affected me personally because it reminded me of my youth, kind of, and how, watching Jordan and all these games, like, that was the time when I actually wanted to play basketball. I wanted to be Michael Jordan, and watching that reminded me of why I wanted to be Michael Jordan. It reminded me of why Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, So, and so it was a sense of kind of nostalgia a little bit. But to answer your question, I mean, that's when sports and basketball was real, Like, I mean, though that's when competition was competition, Like, there was no teaming up with your rival, and it was no, he's a rival. God made him a rival of mine to make me better, and to force me to have to become something that I may not have become otherwise if I didn't have to go against him. And I think that cuts at the heart of sports and competition. I mean, not even sports, competition in life. I mean, we all have that boogeyman, or, as athletes, we call it the boogeyman. At some point you're going to run across someone who's bigger and better than you, and is going to force you to have to be beyond yourself to beat them, And that's what those guys were to each other. And I think, aside from all the internal strife going on with the Bulls, with the GM, which was crazy to me. I mean, that's insane to me. Just seeing the rivalry but also too, seeing the respect too. Like seeing a lot of people don't get that. Like they hated each other and they were rivals, but at the end of the day, some of them went to go play with the other one.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I may hate you on the field, but I respect you as an athlete and as a person, And, I've had those kind of interaction with guys, obviously not on that level in terms of Bulls, but, I've had to play with a rival before, but they quickly became a friend, because at the end of the day, you just know it's not personal. This is the business of sports and the business of competing, But the one thing, though, that I will argue is Dennis Rodman was not load managing. He didn't miss any game. He missed a practice or two practices, and that happened all the time for different reasons. But when I saw those comments, I forgot from which NBA player.
It was Donovan.
Saying that he invented load management. It's like, no, he didn't. He didn't miss a game. Like he didn't miss a game. Like
I think that was a great example of just how media can kind of turn things, because even with all of us watching the same documentary, basically we hear them talk about how Michael Jordan had to go get Rodman out of bed. And so he goes and gets him out of bed. But Michael even says, I'm not going to say where he was, what he was doing, blah, blah, blah. And the media assumed that Michael Jordan went to Vegas and took him out of a hotel room. When it came out later on, the producer of the whole documentary was like, no, Rodman lived across the street from the arena. He literally walked across the street, grabbed him, and brought him in. And so it shows you kind of how media kind of twists things and made things kind of, I guess, go a little one way or the other. Oh, we got your volume off. Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's the media, though, right? I mean, sometimes they don't mean to, but, sometimes to juice up the story, they add different elements. So, that's part of it, though. Seeing something like that and then finding out what's really true and what's really not true. I remember watching, kind of change the subject, the movie Rudy, when I went to Notre Dame, finding out what was real and what really wasn't real, kind of blew me on the way. But yeah, that's Hollywood and that's production, though. But all in all, it was great to show my boys like this was basketball. This was sports and competition. And I think Kobe Bryant said it best. He said, "Load manage. That's what your off season's for. You spend your off season to get in shape to play the whole season. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean load? What do you mean take a game off? If you're not hurt or you don't really need to. Like, so that's teaching them like, hey, this is competition and this is how it really was. That's not it wasn't a foul back then.
Well, you saw how
Jordan
loses the finals again to the Pistons for the second year in a row, and all he wants to do is get back in the gym. And that's all he wants to do with the team is be in the gym until the next season starts. Like that's how it was. There was no summer vacation, in the Caribbean for these guys back then. Like,
and that's part of me can relate to that. Once again, not on that level, but I can remember losing, a playoff game the year coach, I'm trying to think, it was 2005. I remember it like yesterday. We lost every single preseason game, but we knew we had a dynamic team. We didn't care about winning preseason games. We just cared about we got what we wanted accomplished out of that game. Maybe we wanted to test a new play or just see how this guy reacted in this new position. And if we lost a game, who cares? Then we won 14 games that year. And that was the year Coach Dungy's son committed suicide. So that completely knocked the wind out of us.
Yeah,
Coach
I remember that.
Dungy was gone. And we ended up losing. That team should have won the Super Bowl by 100 points. But we ended up losing to the Steelers. And that's the year the Seahawks. No, they beat the Seahawks, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. But we beat the Patriots. We beat the Steelers early that year by like 40 points. and then we lost to them in the second round of the playoffs on a Twilight Zone, just freak. And I remember after that, like most of the team felt so bad for Coach Dungy, and that loss hurt deeply because, that's how much we cared about Coach Dungy. Most of us just stayed around and just worked out. I remember that. I remember that feeling of we got something to prove, and I believe they won the Super Bowl the next year. They traded me that preseason, but the Colts won the Super Bowl that next year, and I know how they did it. I remember the attention to detail and, let's right this wrong. We're so close. Let's get it, but we still can, So that resonated with me when I saw that in the Last Dance documentary.
Well, let's ask the boys. I mean, what did you guys think of the documentary so far?
Seems good. It did.
Did you guys have a favorite on the Bulls team back then? Or do you know much about them?
Not really. I just know about Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Nice.
My
So you
son
said back
asked
then,
me-
like they was born. They not was born then.
My youngest son asked me if Michael Jordan was still alive.
What do you say?
My youngest son asked me if Michael Jordan was still alive like a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because he loves the shoes. I was like, yeah, he's still alive. There's going to be a documentary about him coming out in a month. He was like, oh, good,
I have a girlfriend's son who was like, oh, Michael Jordan, like, Black Panther, Black Panther.
Oh, like,
And when I was like, you don't show him a video of the air up there, we're gonna have problems. Well, I think this weekend's gonna be good. It's gonna be the dream team. I know that was huge for me growing up. I still have like the McDonald's cups. They still have the whole set still, perfectly wrapped somewhere in my mom's house. I mean, that was their dream team, and I think that's something interesting to watch. I know they had a little trailer for they're talking about Kukoc kind of being their opponent back then in the dream team, and then coming on to the Bulls and helping them get back into the swing of things for championships wise. So
that's gonna be awesome. I still remember the dream team Jordans that came out. Wasn't he number 9 or something like that?
I don't know. I didn't have Jordan until I was like a freshman in college.
I don't remember those 9 series of J's. They were 9s?
I think they had the number 9 on the back, if I'm not mistaken. They were white, gold, and blue.
Were they the 9s like the sneaker, or were they like the 5s, the Jordan 5s? Like, I'm a sneakerhead. I'm just trying to figure out which
that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I remember when they came out, it was like, man, these are nice. So
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gerome, so much for
Gerome, so much.
Appreciate seeing you boys. We already had a couple comments. They look just like you, and they're adorable.
Thank you.
They are adorable.
And if games open up for the boys, please let us know, because it'll give us some live stuff to watch in person. So if anything, we can hang out in a bleacher and just entertain ourselves with something happening live.
But you know what? You do a great job, Gerome, of posting your boys at their best, and it's always good to see that. So keep motivating them, and boys, just listen to your dad. He knows a lot. I mean, never want to listen to your parents, but trust me, he knows what he's talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you coming on. Finally, took you long.
Yes, finally. And
We
stay
will have to
safe
see
out
you
there.
three-dimensionally next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. Thank you guys again.
Thank you. Stay safe, okay?
Bye.
Bye. He's so
Woo!
cute. The boy is so cute. Man, he knows a lot.
That was a lot. We had a good show. It was informative.
Yeah, but we didn't get your take really. I mean, I had to step away really quickly because I had an emergency. But we didn't get your take as far as what you thought of the documentary, to a sense. Like, you're the ultimate Jordan girl. What did you think as far as
first of all, as a Jordan girl, I loved it. I mean, and it's not even that. I know that sometimes Jordan was even saying how, you may not like me after you watch this. Like, I already knew kind of how Jordan was, but he was dedicated to his sport and his craft. That was his profession. That's why I enjoyed it. That's why I love watching it. One thing
Go ahead.
One thing I was surprised by was that I didn't realize Rodman's study of players, of positions when they shot. I mean, I of course, as a good defender and a rebounder, you do study, where shots are coming from. But I didn't realize he was really like, watching all these tapes. Like, you see Rodman, in the past of just being a partier and colored hair and the nose rings and partying, whatever. but you didn't see like how much he was doing on the back end and trying to, you know, be the best player he could be. And
he's like one of those kids in college that can party all night and still get straight A's in the school.
I was not one of them.
That was the phenom of why Rodman was who he was. The fact that he could be, and I remember seeing him in Vegas. Shout out to Beach Nightclub, because he would come in there and buy the whole club around. And it's like, isn't this a week you got a game or something? Like, what's going on? Why is he here in Vegas? And then come back like it was all good. Come on the court and be dominating.
And you know what's funny is that when growing up, being a Jordan fan growing up, my brother was a Magic fan growing up, and my cousins, my cousin Sandra and David. Sandra was a big Pistons fan, and my cousin David was a Bulls fan. So me and him got along really well, especially around these bad boys Bulls era times. And then she had posted on Facebook, like I think maybe around Sunday or day after, I was like, I haven't watched any yet. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how have you not watched this? And it was just, it really ignited my own fire for how much I hated the bad boys back then. I hated those Pistons. And, you know, when we were covering the Aces last year, I still had this like earning, you know, for Coach. Like, I knew how Coach was, and I still admire Coach, and I liked him for Coach, but I don't like him as a bad boy. You know, and that was me personally, because I remember how he was. And it's funny, like, shout out to Natalie. A lot of the Aces fans who never knew how Coach was as a player finally get to see it come to front and are realizing that he really was, you know, he was a bad boy.
He was a legend. He was a legend.
To put it lightly.
So, he was a legend. I mean,
yeah, and it was interesting to watch. Just, you know, it's funny because we always see old games that are being played on ESPN and whatnot, but the way that this documentary focuses on these old games, they've like, you know, enriched the coloring. They made the pictures clear. So it's almost like you're watching the 91 Bulls, but in like an HD format, which is something that you couldn't do back then. So I liked it. And I can't wait for more. I don't know what else to do. I got
10-part series. I mean, we got time. That's for
the
sure.
Olympics is coming this week. Shout out to my boy Weeks, because I will be sporting my USA number 9 jersey for the show this weekend.
Okay.
I'm excited for that. Might even come to the show next week. Who knows? But anything else that you wanted to add? I don't know if we had any other pointers.
No, I mean, I was going to ask you what he thought about the Jordan rules thing.
The Jordan rules, man, that was.
But I mean, that to me is a given. I think that each team has a rule of not letting your opponent come into the painter as close as they can and forcing them to shoot out the top of the key.
Out every time either.
Because you got to think about it. Now the game is leveled where it is the top of the key, where it is.
Well, yeah, but you're not even driving anymore. You're literally just shooting threes nowadays. You're not even.
Yeah, because your shot is going to be contested going into the paint, and you don't want to risk injury to a certain degree.
Right, but back then they were trying to make an injury. It wasn't about.
And Jordan, for his phenomenon physique, he took it like a G. Like he took it like a G. And that's what, to me, makes him above any other player right now. I don't think you could do those rules right now because the kids don't even they're scared to even take a butt whooping. They'd rather pull out a gun and say, you know what, we'll see him out there, or my boys will be out there waiting for him to go his car. Right. They'll have that attitude. But
like real ballers have that mentality. Real street ballers have that.
Yes. I mean, it's the same thing you'd see at the Ruckers. At Rucker Park.
That was one of my goals. It wouldn't be a difference. Go to Rucker Park, man.
It wouldn't be a difference if you go to Rucker Park and see it.
Right.
So,
right.
That was my thing. And then what I also liked for it on the documentary thing too is Jordan is worth $2 billion. Isaiah Thomas, roughly, I think I looked up his net worth. I think he's like 20 million. The level of petty that Jordan still has of resentment is ridiculous.
I feel it.
The level of pettiness over not having a handshake
like
is
had you just shaken a hand, look at Magic lost in the finals to Michael and still came was like, yo, if I'm gonna lose anybody, it's to my. I gotta appreciate him. When Michael said, "Listen, I lost to you guys 2 years in a row. I still came, shook your hand, said,
yeah, but you didn't win a championship previous to those 2 years, so you don't know how you'd feel if you was 2 years in with 2 rings and then losing to a team like that and getting your butt kicked. So you don't know how your attitude would be.
It don't matter.
And it's good that he You acknowledged it, but you're worth $20 billion. You're worth $2 billion.
It's not even about money at that point. It's about your pride. It's about, like he said, it's about sportsmanship. Like, what do we teach our? I don't have kids, but what do we teach kids in today's sports? You at least have sportsmanship. You want to be.
I agree with you on all those points, but if I'm $2 billion richer and I'm looking at a guy that's $20 million. I'm gonna laugh.
Them. I mean, all of us, no matter how much money you have,
I got money. I don't care.
No matter how much money you have, there's always going to be something that gets to you. There's your trigger point. Just like if you're with a guy or whatever, like he can only say that one thing that's going to turn you because he knows your point. Like Michael knows, like no matter what, you're still that point where Isaiah just.
So he still got a button after all these years.
Yeah,
being a billionaire. Yeah, he got to let it go. Because they're not going to apologize. And Beer's not going to apologize. He's keeping the same energy. Like, yeah, I orchestrated that, and I hold to it.
We know. Although one thing I did like about the documentary too, though, I really appreciated them showing like the bond between Dennis Rodman and Phil Jackson too. I mean, it takes a special coach to be able to coach Dennis Rodman.
I really wanted them. This is the miss to me. They didn't touch on Tony Kukoc too much in his story.
Well, they haven't. He's coming up.
Oh, is he coming up
this weekend? Because they play against him in the Dream Team, and then it's after that he becomes a Bull. Okay, Horace Grant still looking good after all these years. BJ Armstrong still looks 25. I mean,
BJ Armstrong really looked 16 on that thing. I
was like the 3 gray hairs he had, he would literally still look the same.
Yeah, if he died and he'd be 16, he'd be the same BJ. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Horace looked a little different. Horace didn't have those goggles on. It'd been nice if they had interviewed him.
Right. Well, he got like a little bit bigger. He looked more he looked grown. That's all. He looked grown.
I just wanted to see the goggles. Just take it back. If you're gonna do it, put the red jersey on the goggles.
Expedite job. Like Bill Carter was already 50 years old when he was playing for the Bulls. Like we know you like 80 years old now. So why are we still trying to make it happen? Like, first of all, you shot a basket like this. So.
Right. Well, it made it very interesting. It's a really good documentary, and it kept me entrenched. And it was a lot of like things like, "Whoa, I kind of remember that time," and "Whoa, wow, I didn't know."
I'm excited to see what happens definitely this weekend, and of course, how the rest of the story unfolds. But a question, real quick, about Major League Baseball for you, because Hall of Fame weekend got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about? I mean, but the thing is, they didn't just postpone it for like a month or two, or until the beginning of the season. For like, or until maybe the end of the season for baseball. They basically said not until next year.
Well, that's what it's going to look like. And I don't know if you saw that post I did on the Girl Chat group, how the Dodger Stadium was in preparation for even All-Star, MLB, and then now you have this Hall of Fame. Everything is totally on pause. It's just a pause. Like, I feel like it's bad. We're supposed to be in baseball season right now. Basketball's supposed to be their playoffs. Golf is supposed to be happening right now, and we have none of those things. Man. So everything everything is pushed to the following year. Everything is being now dictated to us that we're not opening up again, or things will not be reactivated until 2021. Because again, when you're planning stuff and you're planning a reopening, you have to really get down to the details of what that entails. And I don't think anybody really has a grand plan or scheme of how that looks like, what that looks like. And right now, we're just drawing on a piece of paper of like.
But Gerome was right. Like they have to think outside the box. And even here in Las Vegas, I think some of like the UNLV casino planners were giving out like $1 million prize for people that wanted to submit that like viable ways to reopen Las Vegas and to reopen casinos and to reopen the Strip. And I was like, wow. Like
all the engineers get on it, because that's an engineering thing. I mean, you're an engineer and a science guy. I mean, get on it, because it's going to take a lot. This is not anything that's going to be all of a sudden. I think people just think it's an easy turn of the key, turn the lights on, and we're back in business. It doesn't work that way, because now you have to guarantee safety for fans or whoever else. Because again, like Chase Center, I remember when it was like the last week, March 11th was the official day that NBA stopped. So Chase Center had a note on their door or on the glass of the arena saying, "Oh, due to COVID-19, we lawyered up," basically in a nutshell, "and anything that happens to you once you come in these doors, we are not liable or responsible for if you have any serious sickness because you decided to participate to a public game."
Yeah.
So they're even being protected legally on the sense that we don't even want this smoke if you get sick because you've chosen to come to a game. So now you've got to try and trust your fans to provide some type of safety measures where they can go to a game and not expect to get sick. What does that look like?
We don't know.
Well,
it's
Dr. Fauci answered it. He said no spectators, which I'm into.
And that's fine.
Of agreeing. I'm with that. Just televise it so like we normally do.
Get it started.
Anyway.
Get it started.
Yeah.
You know? But alas.
Yeah. But we thank everybody for tuning in. Shout out to Tommy Olson because he had chimed in.
If we don't get
like,
Tommy to come on quarantine, we know he's not doing too much. I mean, I'm sure he's working out, but we need to get him on.
Well, we got to get him on and see what those soccer players are up to.
Man, for sure. It's tough not seeing lights, it's almost Ace's time.
It's almost Ace's time, yeah.
Anyways, we appreciate everybody that tuned in, everybody that commented in the chat. Don't forget, the Girl Chess Sports hats are for sale. Shoot us an email, send us a DM. Share the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to us on all other social media platforms and like it. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and guys, anybody that wants to join us on the show, please reach out to us at girlchatsports@gmail.com. You're more than welcome to join in on the chat with us instead of just chatting in on the chat, which is fine. But if we want to see you too. So if you guys want to join in with us, please email us, girlchatsports@gmail.com. Again, all one word. And holler at us for next week.
Thank you. And hey, we don't have balls, but we know how to
use them. Or cover them. Cut that out. Know how to use the balls too. I'm rolling. We know how to cover them. But we know how to use them.
It's only written right there underneath us. I mean, no big deal.
Right.
All right.
Cool.
See you later, guys.
Thank you guys.
Bye.